Woohoo. I think it's working.
Is it working? Okay, I've got waiting for live video on my side.
It tells me meeting is now live streaming on Facebook.
All right, so maybe we are live streaming.
I can check on my phone.
It's always a mystery. Yes, we are live streaming now. Amazing. Okay. It's always a mystery to me when it's because like one thing will be lagging and the other thing will be live. So welcome everybody to the interview. I'm super excited tonight to have Bryn Bamber here with us. And I've often said like building a business is the biggest personal development journey, biggest personal growth journey you're ever going to go on, because you're going to push up against all those things that you feel uncomfortable pushing up against. All those kind of like inner triggers are going to come up, right? And so whether that's fear of rejection, not being good enough, or something else. And so what Bryn does is she works with something called Core Dynamics, and she's an incredible mental health practitioner. And she helps imposters overcome, or not imposters, she helps entrepreneurs overcome imposter syndrome and helps them make more money through their with their gifts through healing childhood habits, patterns, and traumas. And I worked with Bryn last year, and it was really, really helpful for me. For me, it really helped me kind of love myself more and accept myself more, and kind of break through some of those things that I had learned as a child, like that it's not okay to be sad or it's not okay to be angry. And these are all things that are going to come up. So it was really, really a self-accepting and a really freeing experience to work with Bryn. So I'm super happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit more about what you do and what Core Energetics is.
Yeah, so where to begin? I guess I'll begin by saying I became a mental health professional because of my own mental health issues. So I'm someone who struggled pretty intensely with anxiety for a long time. I wasn't aware of it. It was my normal. It was like the air that I breathed or the water that I swam in. And I just thought everyone's stressed and, I'm just stressed. And it wasn't actually until I started to heal and reduce my anxiety levels that I was like, oh, there's this other alternate reality life that's available for me where I feel grounded more of the time and more playful and things are less stressful. Not that I'm never anxious. I think I am someone who is prone to anxiety, so it still comes up, but I have way more tools now. So that's a little bit about why I got on this journey or how I started here. Core Energetics, what it is it's similar to talk therapy in some ways. We're still looking at your childhood. We're still looking at the ways that you chose attachment over authenticity. As children, we have to stay connected to our primary caregivers, our parents, over our authentic expression of ourselves. And so we develop patterns, habits, coping strategies to do that. The issue is to be like a fully functioning adult, we kind of have to flip it. And especially everyone here, I know your group is all about business owners, service-based business owners. And you have to switch that script from going to a place of like people pleasing to, authentically speaking about your services, authentically putting yourself out there. And so, it can be difficult, right? These patterns and habits were formed at a time when our brain was super plastic. And so part of what I'm doing with clients is talking about it, like talking about what happened and what pattern was created, and do you want to keep the pattern? And then the other piece is addressing the patterns in our bodies. So these patterns actually physically get embedded into our muscles and our cells. And an example of how that even works, or why that would even happen, is, say as a 5-year-old, you are super angry, but you know there's going to be a negative reaction from your caregiver or your parent. And so, you know, they're going to make fun of you, or they're going to withdraw their love and attention, or they're going to get angry at you and something bad's going to happen, you know. So you learn, okay, this anger, this tantrum thing that I want is my natural, authentic expression, isn't going to work. The way that you stop yourself as a 5-year-old from, you know, doing this natural impulse thing to be like, is the child will slightly hold their breath. They'll literally tense their shoulders, bring their arms down at their sides, and they'll like physically restrain themselves. The thing is, if you do this for years or decades, you're going to develop chronic tension in the body. So people who suppressed anger as children, typically they're going to have chronic tension in their shoulder, their neck, their jaw, in their hips. And so in addition to talking about what happened and how that's impacting their life now, like people with suppressed anger often have a hard time saying no. Anger is kind of like our no mechanism, our no juice. And if we just like have been holding that back, it's hard, say in a business setting, to set boundaries. Maybe if you're having sessions with clients, your sessions are going over, or you're doing things for free, or you're providing a service that you don't really want to do this service, but somebody asked you, so you're doing it. So in working with me, I'm working with the body to literally like put pressure on those places, on those areas of tension, to do different movements, to move it so that you can reconnect to that anger of energy and use it in a way that serves you. Use it to create healthy boundaries. Use it to say no to things that aren't okay for you.
And so with this like tension in your body, is there you mentioned like you'll get tight, and then when you're learning to express it, like when you're going through and working with you to express this, is it like you're expressing it in the present, or are you going back into the past and expressing it as a child, or how does that work, or is it both?
Yeah, so I like to work with the energy that's in the room, in a session. It might be anger that's old, but it's bubbling to the surface. So I wouldn't go into a session with a client and say like, conjure your anger.
Right.
I would go into a session with a client and say like, how do you feel today? What's happening today? And if anger is coming up, even sometimes someone will come in and they'll be like, oh, this is a real example. I won't share too much detail, to keep the person anonymous, but I have a client who's a business owner, and she has this nightmare client. And so she comes in and is like, I'm so stressed, and this is going wrong, and that is going wrong, and da 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 da. And so we talk about what's happening in the present, but then we also want to see, how's that connected to your past? Does this person that you're having this issue with now, does that remind you of anyone? Is this like, are you recreating something from childhood? And then to, invite her to physically move the anger, to bring her hands into fists, to do different movements on the day when she comes in angry. Because my belief is that the body really brings up what needs to be healed next, what brings up what needs to be processed. So it's not, the way I work with clients is non-linear. I'm not saying, okay, what happened when you were 1? And let's talk about that. And what happened when you're 2? It's more like, what's happening in your life now? What are your current struggles? And then I have different techniques to help you connect to your intuition and connect to how is that connected to your past, and do the healing that way.
I love that. I love that it's about moving the energy and learning new patterns of moving the energy. And it's not just because sometimes, when you think of traditional therapy or traditional psychotherapy, sometimes it's like, okay, we've identified where it comes from, but then you're not doing anything with it. Like it's one thing to say, like, where has this happened in your past? And then to remember, oh yeah, when I was a kid, this happened, or when I was a teenager, this was a recurring pattern in my life. But then then what do you do with that? And so learning how to move with it, and then what to do once you've actually kind of learned how to express it healthy. Like what do and I think I remember with you, like we had different like homework that I would do, or things that like tools that I could take with me after we'd done a session, and I could just kind of like practice these.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really, I found like working with you was so good for helping me even gain the courage to like, I was traditionally conflict avoidant person. Like I wouldn't want to, I was always afraid of like upsetting the harmony in the house. And that's like also a pattern of mine in my history. And then after working with you, I was able to have those conversations with if it was my roommate or other people, where it was like, this is not working for me, and know that I'm not at risk. Like I'm not going to die if I have this, but sometimes that's what it feels like.
Totally. Yeah.
So how could
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to say is like when you are a little kid, it is a lot more serious because these people, your caregivers or your parents are your source of love, your source of food, your source of recreational activities, everything. Mm-hmm. And so when you're avoiding conflict as a kid, like there's a survival mechanism there. And then we just take that into adulthood, even though we're grown up, we have a lot more autonomy. In a situation with a roommate, you can move out if it gets that bad. Like there's more choice. When you're a kid, you can't move out. You can't be like 5 years old or 8 years old and like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm going to find some other parents. You have to make it work. And so some of us, the way we make it work is by avoiding conflict. Mm-hmm. But then, I think as you realize, then if you're avoiding conflict as an adult, that's not always in the best service to you.
Exactly. And it's not just anger, like you help people process other emotions as well.
All the emotions.
All the emotions.
All hopelessness. Loneliness is a big one right now. Mm-hmm. I know I'm in Toronto, we're in the lockdown still. And so, yeah, fear, all the emotions, joy, being proud of yourself. Some of us have a real hard time like feeling those ones.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a hard one for women because often we're taught to be, don't upset other people. Don't try and be better than other people, or try and maintain the peace. So if everybody's down, you have to be down,
Yeah. Celebrate. Celebrating themselves. Yeah. All the feelings.
Amazing. So how can someone tell if they are pushing up against like an inner child thing? Are there signs?
Totally. So one sign, I have some litmus tests for inner child. So one is what I would call right-sized reaction. So if you get an email from a client, a disgruntled client, and you're like a little bit concerned, or you're like, oh, okay, I want to like make sure I'm doing this right, and da da da. That is what I would call probably a right-sized reaction. If you get an email from a disgruntled client and you get like sweaty, you go into a panic, you're like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like, going almost into fight or flight, or maybe fully into fight or flight. That is what I would say is probably not the right size reaction given a disgruntled email. So that's an indicator that there's probably an inner child here at work. You're probably being triggered. You're probably something from your history is being, that button from your past is being touched by this email. So that's one indicator that it could be your inner child.
Would that be the same if it was, sorry, don't interrupt, but would that be the same if it was someone who was like making a comment on a Facebook post, or you put up a post and you're really nervous about it, and then somebody said something critical and then you flip out. You're like, oh my God, I should just quit. Why am I even doing this? And it's one person. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Totally. Exactly the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. So, versus like, I don't know what you would want to actually panic about, but there could be, I mean, an example is like if some member of your family passed away or something and you were overwhelmed with grief and emotion, it's like, of course, that's right sized, right? Like you're losing someone you love. So it's not saying that you never get super emotional, but it's like, is it an email? Is it one comment? Or is it, something actually really substantial that you do want to, I do want to feel a ton of emotion when something like that happens. So that's one indicator. The other litmus test that I like to use with clients, and this one is super helpful for financial things. I know when you're a small business owner, money can be a hot topic. And something you're trying to figure out. And the litmus test around that is like what's the 5-year financial impact of this? I actually had a session with a client today where we were talking about some financial things and thinking about like, is this going to be an issue in 5 years? Your inner child is going to be like, this is an example of my inner child. So, and I'm pretty aware of this one now, so it's less prevalent. But when I started my business and I started working with clients, a client would cancel a single session, one session, and my inner child would go to, oh no, like I'm losing that money of that one session, and also they're probably gonna quit. And probably my other clients are going to cancel, and probably my other clients are going to quit, and my business is collapsing. And go to total panic from one client canceling one session.
Just spirals into disaster. My friend calls this disastrobating. Because it's just one thing that leads like in a spiral. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing, like, to have compassion for your inner child, because, when I think about my history, my inner child went through some difficult things. And so she developed this protective mechanism of like always looking, where's the other shoe going to drop? When is the expression of this parent's face going to slightly change? And then I'm going to have to do something different to, make it an okay situation for me. And so she's applying that to my business, which is super unhelpful. It was super helpful when I was, navigating some of the childhood challenges that I navigated, was to like always look for the danger and always look for trying to like be ahead of the curve if something was going to happen. But now, it's just a painful way to run a business.
Yes.
To see like a small, one session being canceled or an unexpected bill or whatever. And then she's like, it's all about to crumble. And so if anyone listening can relate to that, what I would say is like, the first thing to do is, if you're able to do this, is to just love her, is to just
love your inner child. Or him, depending. Maybe there might be guys watching. But
whatever gender. Yeah. But just to love this young part of you that doesn't understand business. This part of you is maybe 5 years old, maybe 3 years old, maybe 8 years old. And they're panicking. And they're trying to give you their 8-year-old advice or their 5-year-old advice of what you need to do.
Which is eat ice cream.
Like,
For
which
me,
is
it's
like
eat ice cream.
eat ice cream or go on LinkedIn and get a job or,
Right.
you know,
Just to go watch TV for, 24 days.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so to just love that part of you, but then to also do what we call reparenting, which is to say, like, you're 5. You don't get to make my business decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to come to the planning meeting, our next quarter planning meeting. You don't get to decide. Yeah, you don't get to decide what we're going to do. And to love your inner child and to say, yeah, you can decide what we're going to have for dinner. I'm okay with that. But you don't get to make my business decision.
Mm-hmm. Right. But the important thing is like acknowledging that it's your inner child is needing attention, because often it's just the attention, right? They just need to be acknowledged, or to be like, yeah, you're valid, and it's okay that you're feeling this way, and we're going to do something else.
And it makes sense, with when I'm working with my own inner child, it's like, yeah, it makes sense she's freaking out. She went through some hard stuff.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. So it's okay that she's freaking out. But yeah, I think it's really important to send love if you're able. I know it can be we can get really frustrated with these parts of us that are sending us into panics and, telling us that we're crappy at, my inner child's like, she can be mean. She's like, you suck. This is never going to work. She's trying to protect me, but in that 5-year-old way of like, this isn't safe. How can I get Bryn to stop? I'm going to tell her she sucks.
Right.
So she can be mean. And so I totally sometimes get into a fight with her, right? Like, that's not my goal or my intention, but sometimes I'm like, shut up. Let me do my thing. Which, then I'm just like, there's a fight happening in my head. It's really hard to focus on my business.
Right.
When that is all happening. But it does happen. But so if you're able to send love, send compassion to the part of you that's scared, and know that it's not all of you. I think when I really, get it can really negatively impact, like, our title is like, how does your inner child impact sales? And when I believe her and I think she's me, it does not go well. Because then I'm like, oh, my business is failing. It is about to crumble. I better get some clients really fast. I'm not coming from my heart. I'm not like, what is going to serve this human being in front of me? What can help them? I'm like, I need money because shit is falling apart.
Yeah. And that doesn't work ever.
No, my energy is like weird. I'm trying to instead of coming from this loving place of like, I think I can really help you. I found this thing called core energetics. It's changed my life. I want it to, I think it could change your life too. Instead of coming from that kind of energy, I'm coming from this place of like, I need a client. So like, hey, you should be my client, like.
Yeah. It's like grasping
you should
energy.
Sign up with me because I don't know how I'm going to make rent and shit is hitting the fan,
Yeah.
So that's how she can sabotage, or whatever gender your inner child is, can sabotage you, is when you believe that panic spiral that she's going through.
Yeah.
The way to work with your inner child so that she can the good news is she can panic. It's just, as long as you don't get caught into it. Or, the other analogy is like, get her hands off your steering wheel. Put her in the back seat. She is 5. Don't let her, you're like driving, your business is going well, and she's like, turn around,
Yeah.
She's like trying to grab the steering wheel and be like, it's not safe, It's not safe to invest in yourself. It's not safe to invest in your business because you're never going to get any more clients. These are all things that my inner child tells me all the time,
Yeah.
And I've been doing this work for a while. And to this day, she's like, this week, her thing, because I do journaling with her pretty often. This week, her thing was like, so I've had a pretty successful month in January, actually, like the most successful month ever. I'll just, own it.
Woo-hoo.
And so it's been going great. And she's like, but you've written, my social posts are doing well, and like people are commenting and being interested in working with me through that. And she's like, but that was a good idea, but now you already wrote about it and you're not going to have any more good ideas. That's her story
It's
this
limited.
week.
That's what I used to believe, that like back about a year ago. It was like, how can I do posts that are any better than these posts? Were so good. I'm so proud of them. I'm never going to have it. And because I read your emails are great. Like they're so engaging and they're so fun to read. And and I think your parent knows, like you're always gonna, like, ideas are just gonna come to you.
And I'm gonna keep learning and growing as a person and sharing sharing the new thing. Like there's a part of me, yes, exactly, my intuition, my higher self, my parent, whatever you want to call all the different parts of us. But there's a part of me that knows, like, I'm not gonna run out of ideas, but she somehow is like, this success was a lot, and like, you can't trust it. Even the success isn't safe for her.
Right.
Just everything for her, she just has danger glasses on, and somehow everything is dangerous. And so like I'm to be totally honest, I had a few days where I like bought into her. I was like, well, those posts were so good, and like, what do I write about next? And I don't know what anyone needs to hear, or, like buying into her story, and then, continuing to work with it, and then getting to a point where it's like, oh no, I'm a good writer. I like writing. Not every single one of my posts is going to be amazing, but I'm willing to have some duds in there and keep doing my best to explain these concepts that have been life-changing for me. And sometimes I'm going to nail it. And other times I'm not, but like, I'm not out of all the good ideas.
Like, so, it's not all done. That's it. The whole business ends now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you did really well, but like, pinch your pennies, because this is not going to happen again. So I think oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's very common too when people have success. There's like, they call it the upper limit problem.
Yes, so I read that book.
The upper limit problem, and it's this idea that you can only go so far, or you get so far, and then, or this thing, like, good things happen, but then bad things have to happen.
Yes,
it can't just be all good things, and it can all be just good things once you let go of this belief or this idea, or your inner child telling you it's not safe to be successful.
Which your inner child, to everyone listening, your inner child is going to say that, right? She's going to say, like, depending on where you are in your business and what your struggle is right now, like, your inner child is going to say it's not safe for you to post on social media. People aren't going to like you. People are going to think you're sleazy. People are going to think you're a scammy business person who just wants their money, like,
or crazy, like, or cuckoo, or depending on what it is that you're selling. I think that's visibility is a really common thread. The fear of visibility is a really common thread amongst the people that I work with, and some of the people in this group, and they know who they are. And it's this idea that, oh my gosh, like, I can't even, I can't go public with this. I don't want people, even though my dream is to have thousands of people know about what I do and to be serving big audiences, I can't, I can't let anyone other than the 5 people closest to me know about this, because someone's going to come at me with a pitchfork.
Yeah. And I can totally relate to that. I'm like a deeply spiritual person, and my online presence hasn't always reflected that, because I was like, people are not gonna like me, or people are gonna think my spirituality is cuckoo or whatever. And so I did this thing where I'd like come out of the closet for like one post, but then I'd like hide back away and like rely on neuroscience, which I love neuroscience. I'm like deeply spiritual, deeply love neuroscience. I'm like one of those and both people. But I was like really heavily weighted on the neuroscience. And then I'll have clients kept saying to me, like, I'm so glad I'm working with you because I can share this spiritual insight, and, mental health professionals in the past wouldn't have understood, and da da da. And yet on my Instagram, I'm like not talking about my spirituality.
Yeah.
Like, people are saying, this is the reason I want to work with you, is this part of you. And yet I was hiding it, which again, yes, it was my inner child being like, it's not safe. People are not going to like you. People are going to think you're weird. And it's like, all of that is true. And the people who I meant to work with loved me for it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I find sometimes too, it's that fear, especially in the beginning, when you're a brand new entrepreneur, when you're new to something, there's a fear that like you've got this really hard imposter syndrome and you think people are going to see that I don't know what I'm doing, right? Because you do know what you're doing, but you don't know that yet because you haven't done it enough. And so people won't do anything. They'll be afraid to even like promote that they're doing this thing, because if they actually got a client, then they'd have to face that risk that maybe they don't know what they're doing. But the only way you can learn how to do something is by doing it. So it's just like catch 22, right? And it really like it so much comes down to belief in yourself and quieting like that inner child to know like you've got this.
Yeah. And it's like to everyone listening, it's like there's a part of you that knows you're supposed to do this, and there's a part of you that knows you're good at it. And yeah, your inner child is like telling you all these things of like, you're not good enough and you haven't done it enough. And even when you talk to someone, you have to explain and make sure they know you're super new and da da da. And then you have this other pull, right? This other part of you that's like, I don't know what everyone listening is, but like those of you who are coaches, like you've been coaching your friends, like kind of subtly for years. Like it's like you do have experience. It's just like not in this particular container of your particular business yet.
Yeah.
And so it's like really acknowledging that you aren't starting from ground zero. The thing that you're meant to do, you probably have been doing in some way for a long time. And now it's just coming into this new container of your business.
Yeah. And valuing that, right? Valuing your experience, valuing the things that you have done, like, and valuing like some people, they've gone to school, they've learned it, but then they don't want to do it. But like valuing all that training, right? And valuing the fact that I think like that people who are coaches and like light workers and service-based kind of personal transformation, like this is a calling, like this is the thing that it lights them up. They know the difference it's made in their life, right? And so valuing the fact that they're called to it, that it's something that is in you for a reason to make the world a better place. And kind of for me, that really helps is like getting out of my own way and saying like, this is why I'm doing this. Because it's not about me. It's about the difference you can make. Right.
Totally. Yeah. One of the coaches I'm working with now, I was like going through my own mind drama about, I don't even remember what it was, but my inner child was freaking out about something, like doing it perfectly and blah, blah, blah. And she said, by indulging in this, you're betraying your clients.
I love that. I love that so much. That is so good. Yes.
And I was like, yeah, my first response was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm not as focused on the clients that I have and da, da, da. And she was like, yes. And you're betraying your future clients, the people you're supposed to be like going out and finding them and letting them know what you do and how core energetics works. By like indulging in this mind drama, you're betraying all those people who you haven't even met, who could deeply benefit from the work that you're doing. So just to everyone listening, just check. Are there people out there that you know on some level you could really help, regardless of what your particular craft is? And are you betraying them by not standing up and just letting them know, hey, I'm here. I have this thing that could help you. I want to help you. I feel like I'm meant to help you. You know, my name's June. This is what I do.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. So what are some very like simple things that people can do to start letting go of old patterns?
Yeah. So I love journaling. I think with inner child work, journaling is fantastic. I like to, you know, talk to her, but write it down. It slows down my brain enough. If you really hate writing and journaling, you could record a voice note on your phone, but to capture it in some way, I think is really important, because when we just think about it, our brain just goes so fast. So yeah, one of the exercises I really recommend is like letting your inner child speak, letting whatever gender they are say, you know, all the things they're scared about or mad about or they don't like, and then asking them what they need. My inner child usually just wants me to sit beside her and let her be panicked, but be there, but not abandon her. And then to tune into your intuition. What do you know to be true? So, you know, like depending on what your goal is, like this Facebook Live is about sales, right?
Or just it's about business in general, but yeah.
Okay. Business. But let's
Which
use
is sales. With no sales, there's no business. So yeah.
Yeah. So let's use sales as an example. So to connect to your intuition after letting your inner child vent and say, how could making one sale this week be possible, or 5 sales or 10 sales, depending what industry the number you want is? How could that be possible? What have I already done that has prepared me for it? Even if it's not quite exactly the same, I think a lot of time the inner child is going to discount any past experience. Like maybe you worked in corporate, or maybe you were really good at school or whatever, but your inner child's going to be like, no, sales is different. Sales is, my inner child would always say, like, sales isn't learnable and you're not a natural salesperson. And so like, this is not going to happen for you. That was like one of her stories to try and protect me, right? She's like, yeah, I can love her. So to tune into your intuition and say, how could it be possible? Or how could my past experience help me get there? Or what's my next baby step? Your intuition isn't always going to give you all the steps, but your intuition will give you a baby step. And then once you take that, your intuition will give you your next baby step.
Yeah.
So you know how to do whatever that hurdle, the current hurdle is in your business. It's just seeing how your inner child is trying to stop you, loving your inner child, and then tuning into your intuition and figuring out that next baby step you can take. You know, even if you are in the sale, back to the sales example, being like, who do I need to reach out to next? Connect to your intuition.
And also, if your inner child is like a chronic planner or worrier who has to plan every single thing out, right? Letting them know that we're just going to try a little experiment and we're just going to do the next step. Because I know this, like when you take the step, the path reveals itself. This is so true.
Exactly.
And when you listen to your intuition and you follow those things, like that's when things start to come to you, because you're coming from a place of connectedness and coming not from a place of neediness, but from a place of creativity.
Totally. Yeah. And that's how businesses are built. One baby step at a time. And you know, it's not going to go perfect. Even if you are connected to your intuition, you're going to stumble, you're going to mess up, it's not going to work. And that's okay. Those are all learning opportunities. And then you just keep taking baby steps. And then, you know, you get QuickBooks and you figure out how to use it, and you get comfort kit and you figure out how, and it's like slowly, step by step, you just do the next right thing. This is one of like Oprah's concepts. It's like, you just got to do the next right thing.
Love it.
And then the next right thing. And then like, look where Oprah ended up. Worked out okay for her.
Nice.
So you can try it.
Or there's that old joke that, my grandmother, she started taking walks when she was 70 and she's 90 now. We have no idea where she is or whatever. No, I don't know that joke. She started walking like 20 miles a day and now we have no idea where she is. So
Yeah.
That's not really helpful, but it's funny.
Yeah. Just one step,
one step at a time. Because you never know where you're going to end up. Like, you'll never know where things are going to take you. Like, you have a vision of where you want to be, and you never know. Like, you could, just by taking one step, or just taking like that one step that leads to the step that you didn't know about, can lead you way further than you thought you would ever go, or to a much more satisfying place.
Yeah. The metaphor that comes to me is like, I know, like, whenever I would go on a hike and climb a mountain, it's like standing at the bottom, I'd always be like, we're never gonna get there. It looks so far. It looks so high. And like, how, from here, how are we gonna get there? It just seems impossible. And then you take one step and you take another, and 1 hour later or 3 hours later, depending on which mountain range you're in, you're at the top. And it's like, it wasn't actually that hard. It's just like one little step at a time, and you got to the top of the mountain. And maybe you did fall, maybe there was a part where you tripped over a tree branch and you had to get back up, and you had to stop and take a water break and eat some trail mix. But one step at a time, you do achieve these, whatever your goal is. You totally can achieve it as long as you don't quit.
That's the main thing.
As long as you don't turn around and say,
it's
too tall of a mountain, I'm going home, then you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
But if you keep going,
and that's why it's so important to know, to tap into, to know when it's your inner child talking, old patterns talking, and not you. This isn't you. This is just stuff you've learned in your past, right? This is nothing to be like, this is not the totality. It's just tiny little facet of you.
Yes. I love
echoes. That. It's echoes in the chamber. Yeah. So tell us, what do you have coming up, and how can people find you to work with you?
Yeah. So I've really streamlined my business. I only work with one-on-one clients. So if you are resonating with what I'm talking about, and you think this could really be the thing that could help you get to the next level of breakthroughs in both your life, in your personal life, in your business, feel free to reach out with me. I do a free 1-hour consultation where we talk about where you are now, what the top of the mountain is for you, what's in the way, and whether I am like the right guide to walk up alongside the mountain with you. If you're not ready for that level of commitment, which I totally get, we just met, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Bryn_Bamber. I am on Facebook, Bryn Bamber. You're welcome to add me as a friend or follow my business page. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a podcast called the Burnout to Brilliance podcast. It's on iTunes and Spotify and Google and all the kind of major podcasting apps. And I have
and your website?
My website is brynbamber.com.
Right. Okay.
Oh, I have a money blocks training that I think you actually might have done.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. Sure. Yeah. Who knows? So if that is like your stuck point right now in your business, that training, it's totally free. It's recorded. That could be a really good place to start. And I also have a free anxiety training if you're one of those anxious people like me. So lots of free stuff to kind of ease yourself in.
And get on your mailing list because your emails are great.
Yes. And so all of those will get you on. The money blocks will, the anxiety training will get you onto the mailing list.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being here today. This was a really great conversation. I'm sure a lot of people are going to relate to it. So you can check out Bryn at any of those channels, brynbamber.ca.
.com.
brynbamber.com. Perfect. All right. And if you have any comments or questions for Bryn, you can put them in the comments below. Use hashtag replay, and I can forward those on to her, or you can just reach out directly to her on.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone. Send me a DM on Instagram or a message on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'd love to hear what's happening for you and answer any question if you have any questions about that.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And we'll see you in another 2 weeks. Coming up in 2 weeks, we have, is it in 2 weeks? I think we have Dwayne Richards coming on, and he is a CPA, certified professional accountant. We're going to be talking about money from the money side of things. So bookmark for that. That's in 2 weeks from now, 7 to approximately 8 o'clock. All right. We'll see you.